The humble inner tube. Probably the least glamorous part of a bicycle, but essential to its everyday running. That is, of course, unless you're running tubeless or tubulars. But there are a lot of different types of inner tube on the market, so which one is right for you? Well, in this video, we're going to go through your options and which one is best used for different riding scenarios. Firstly, let's take a look at the valve. Now, there are two choices out there. The first one looks like this. It's called schrader. It's quite a thick one and it's exactly the same as you'll find on the majority of car tyres as well, and more commonly found on road bikes. In fact, I'd say on 99% of them, is this slightly thinner one. This is called the presta valve. Not only do you have the option of two different types of valve, but these days, increasingly, you have the options of different lengths of presta valve as well. That's because with the advent of deep section wheels, in order to get right the way through the rim, poking out the other side for your pump to grip onto, you'll need a much longer valve. Now, bear in mind, of course then, if you've got a 40mm deep rim, you're going to need a valve of around about 60mm in length, which is exactly what this is. They don't really go up more than 80 to 82mm from what we've seen, so at that point you're going to need to use a valve extender, which is something we're going to cover in a separate video. So that's the choices of valves covered, but what about the actual rubber part of the inner tube? Well, there are different sizes available to you here as well. The first one is the circumference. Now, almost all adult road bikes will have wheels this size, and they are 700C. There are very few exceptions, but you can double check by checking on the sidewall of the tyre. Here you can see marked 700, and it says by 25C. Now the 25 bit, that's the actual width of the tyre. Generally these days, almost everyone is running between 21 and 25C, but it is worth double checking because if you have got an extremely big tyre, you'll want to get the corresponding inner tube. If you try to run a thin inner tube inside a big fat tyre, you'll be stretching it as it fills up the volume inside, and that will leave you more prone to punctures. So when you're looking for your inner tube in a shop or on the internet, have a look for those two numbers. 700C you can see marked there, and it will give you a range of widths that the inner tube will fit. Okay, the last thing we're going to look at is the type of rubber that's used for the inner tubes. Now, as you might expect, where the fuck have I done with it? There it is. Your final choice is the type of material used for the inner tube. Now, as you might expect, the cheapest inner tubes are generally the heaviest, but this is not always a bad thing. Yes, you'll have more rotational weight and slightly more rolling resistance, but arguably you'll also have slightly more puncture resistance, which means these are great for your winter training wheels. Some manufacturers offer super lightweight tubes. For example, Continental with their Supersonics, they only weigh 50 grams. That's around about 75 grams per tube saving on these cheap ones here. Now that might not sound like a huge amount. Add it up to two wheels, 150 grams, and the fact that it's rotational weight, and it does add up some significant savings, both when you're climbing and on flat roads. And finally, we've got this, which is a latex inner tube. Quite rare these days. I actually found this in the depths of my garage. Now, a few disadvantages to this one. Firstly, it's expensive. Secondly, certain carbon wheel manufacturers don't recommend using them. Apparently, they're more prone to blowouts if you get your rim really hot through braking. And finally, they leak air. No, not over the course of a ride, but if you come back to your wheels 2 or 3 days later, you're probably going to need to pump them up. The main benefits to these apparently are that there's much less rolling resistance if you use latex inner tubes inside your tyres. Now, if you want to go faster for free, as it were, it might be worth doing some research on that yourself. So a quick summary, the options available to you are the type of valve. Generally, you're going to want presta for road bikes, the length of it, which is dependent on the depth of your rim, the size of your inner tube, generally 700C, and you want to look at the width as well. And finally, the type of inner tube. Heavier, cheaper ones for winter riding and lighter ones for when you're racing. If you'd like to know how to change your inner tube, you can find out by clicking up there. And if you'd like to know how to get home when you're out training if you puncture without any inner tubes, it can be done. You can find out how to do that by clicking down there. And finally, to subscribe to GCN, it's absolutely free. Just click on me.